Hey y'all, welcome to Shade in the City. It's your girl Treese here. And yes, we are here to get into Beyond the Gates season 1. I'm doing episodes 71 and 72. And yes, I've seen episode 73. So I will circle back and give y'all that and you'll get a bag to bag. All right. On this lovely Friday evening. So I hope everyone is doing well. If you have not already, all my BTG Shade Squad, please make sure you hit that like button. And make sure that you subscribe if you liking the vibe over here and you know you just been teetering on the fence, you're not sure, come on over. Come on over. Okay. There's room for you too. But yeah, y'all. So let's get into this episodes or these episodes of Beyond the Gates. And as per usual, I will make sure I put a break in the middle so you know what's what. But yeah, y'all, let's get into it. And let's get shady. And hopefully my stuff doesn't mess up because it is storming out here, y'all. Kick off episode 71. Bill is showing off, trying to convince Haley that he doesn't need rehab. And Shanice comes in, and Bill is ready to give her the business. All right. He doesn't want to take her direction, and so she's instructing him to ball a piece of paper up, and he struggles to do so on his right side. He does fine on his left. And so this obviously makes Bill frustrated, and he ends up balling up the piece of paper with his left hand and then throwing it, which happens to hit Dr. 3M as she walks in to see how therapy is going. Okay. Now Vernon is on the phone. We cut to Vernon and he's on the phone with Anita. And she shares how nostalgic it is running around Chicago with her group mates. And can I tell you that Anita looked good? Okay. She was out here looking like she had just came from the brunch. Okay. Anita looked good. All right. She tells Vernon that she realizes that she absolutely did want to get out of Caprini Green, but if she hadn't come from there, she might not be where she is today. Vernon tells her that it was inevitable. And Anita responds just like the two of them were inevitable. And I said, oh, isn't that cute, right? So then they talk about how how much they miss each other, and then Vernon tells her that she's where she needs to be. And so Anita mentions how things are still kind of awkward between her and the other two ladies, Sharon and Tracy. And she's still waiting for things to just be comfortable again. So Anita said that she plans to stick it out, because Vernon was like, do you need me to come up there? Do I need to make an appearance? And she was like, nah, I got it. But she mentions that, look, I still have not spoken to Nicole or Danny. And Vernon said, don't worry about it. I got it covered. And trust and believe, if things start getting messy and I need to get my on the flight, I can come sit in the front row of rehearsals. Okay. And so Anita said, thank you, baby, but I'm still working on, getting the rhythm back. And so she gives him his props for, just allowing her the time and space to, do what she's doing. Vernon says that his purpose in the end is to always be there for her. And I said, okay. I don't know why. Feel like that was a nugget. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe it was just two old folks who are still very much in love, but it gave me the vibe that. And then it was funny because and shout out to all my members. We had a really good live last night and had a really good conversation, as we always do. And I love chopping it up with y'all and getting ideas and theories and things and bouncing off each other. So let's move over to Nicole, who comes in to check on Laura, who seems to be having a hard time getting back into the swing of things because, even downloaded and, put all this stuff on her computer. So Nicole said, look, give yourself some grace, girl. You just got back and you've been through a lot. And Laura mentions how, well, Eva set up this new system, and Nicole lets her know, and it works so well, but I can't figure it out, right? So Nicole lets her know that, look, you are not in competition with Eva. So Laura asked Nicole, would it be okay if Eva comes over here and walks me through this? She's already offered, and I'll make sure to do it while you're not here, because I know that that might be uncomfortable for you. And Nicole said, it's cool. I've already had a conversation with Eva, and that's fine. And I was like, is that what we're really doing? Um, and so Laura recognizes, so she wants to play peacemaker, and she's like, well, I reckon, I know that you cared about Eva. Um, and Nicole said, yeah, I did. I did. He said, but the Eva that I cared about um was a lie, basically. That person wasn't real. So Laura can tell or recognizes that, Nicole really cared for Eva. And Nicole admits that she did, but said that that person wasn't real. And Eva had been lying to her from the start. Laura's like, well, do you really believe that? And Nicole tells her, you know what? Honestly, I went to see her and I still don't know what to believe. I still don't know if anything that she said or did was true or not. Okay. Then Nicole starts to beat herself up about how she couldn't see Eva coming, and this is her job to read people. And so Laura tries to explain that you're a trusting person, and yeah, you wouldn't have expected someone to do something like this to you. Duh. And so Nicole reminds her, but it wasn't just Eva that was lying to me. And I said, well, there's that. And she said, all the signs were there, but I was being little miss, but I overlooked it because my life was so perfect and I was so happy. And we talked about this in the membership last night. And I said, there's a part of Nicole, and I don't know if it's just her being sheltered, growing up beyond the gates. And even though she works with other people, and I've said this before, as much as I am Team Nicole, she's a little snooty. Kat didn't get that from nowhere. Nicole definitely has her nose up in the air to a certain level. And again, Kat didn't get that from nowhere. Nicole absolutely thinks she's above certain things, but we're going to get into that. So then we cut over to Leslie's house, and she's at home screaming at the TV when Jacob shows up, lets her know that he's there to search her apartment again. So she's like, well, you must be here to apologize. And Jacob said, no, I'm here to do my damn job. That's what I'm here to do. And so as he's ignoring her, as she's trying to distract him from doing his search, he tells her that, you know what, because she's like, well, what are you doing? What are you looking for? And he's like, you know what, if you have any questions about the search, call your lawyer. That's not my job. My job is to search. Okay. So she's talking to him about some soap opera, is what I got, or some show, and a character that everyone loved to hate. And I literally said she's describing herself. But eventually that character becomes the heroine. I don't think that'll ever happen, Leslie, but you're delusional, so it's okay. I get where you're going with it. So Jacob tells her that, no, I've never watched that crazy, but it sounds like a fantasy to me. And so he asks her to sit down and chill out as he goes to look through the ottoman, and he finds a helmet. All right. And I don't know if he found the gloves, but I know he found the helmet. And so Leslie acts all surprised and mentions how, well, that's crazy because when you were first here, you didn't find nothing. And said, you know what? I think this evidence was manufactured, almost like he had set her up, like he placed it there. Okay. And so before Jacob leaves, then she lets him know that he looks like a whole snack, which, she can't help but do because that's what Pick Six Leslie like to do. And says that she knows Kat is the one that's running this investigation. And as he leaves, she says, spoiler alert, in the end, I win. I said, y'all better leave that crazy bitch alone, okay? So Vernon has beckoned his children over to the house so he can explain where Anita is. Danny shows up first, wanting to know why she was called there, and tells him that, you know what, I'm not ready for another intervention. And he's like, literally my notes say, I love how Vernon looks at her and says, as hard as this may be for you to believe, Danny, it's not about you this time. And I said, well, and it's funny because you can actually tell that it's hard for Danny to believe that. So Nicole comes in looking for Anita as well, and then Vernon decides to share the news that the Articulates reunion is moving forward, and that Anita is gone. She off in Chicago, but she'll be back in a few weeks. And so both Danny and Nicole are confused. What the rush? What was the rush? As we all are. And so Vernon blames it on the agent. I think it was Jerry Price or something like that, that they're working with. And so Danny then begins to get excited for her mother while Nicole seems to be struggling with this news. Vernon realizes that Nicole came over looking for her mother for a shoulder to lean on. And so he explains that, look, she's just a phone call away. She's still there. You still, but says that, look, your mama really need this. So Danny tries to make Nicole feel better and reminds Nicole that you still got me, girl. I'm still here. But and said that, I may not have mama's grace, okay, but I do have experience in betrayal. And then this is what I was talking about. Cole turns to her and says, I hate that I'm a part that we're in the same club. And I get what she was saying, but and this is, yes, Bill is a butthole, and I'm not gonna negate or say that he's not. I just didn't like her saying that to her sister, because it's almost like you thought you were above getting cheated on. Holly Berry has been cheated on. Like, everybody, like, so who are you, ma'am? That you're I can't believe I don't want, this is the club. Nobody wants to be a part of that club. But guess what? We're here. Because guess what? You're no better than anybody else, and you can get it too. Humble yourself, girl. Humble yourself. Okay. Now, Laura has Eva over and lets her know that Nicole is aware that she is there. Eva quickly realizes, as she's trying to train Laura, that basically Laura's playing stupid. So she asks her, well, why you really got me here? And so Laura tells her that, look, I really feel like Nicole misses you. And I said, Laura, why are we interfering in things that don't concern us? But okay. You must not want this job. Or did you have another offer somewhere? Because I don't understand what the motivation behind this was. But okay. Especially not after that girl mama tried to unalive you. But who am I? All right. So Eva feels like, she doesn't get to have a relationship with Nicole after what she did. And not right now. I'm not saying it can't ever happen, but yeah, not right now. No, y'all can't have a relationship. So Laura tells her, let Nicole decide that, and reminds her that, the situation is a little complicated. So Eva asks, well, how can we ever move past the hurt and embarrassment that I caused her? And so Laura tells her, well, look, after talking to both of y'all, I advise you to be ready next time you run into Nicole and be open. And so Eva says, it's hard after someone shuts you down, but for Nicole, she can absolutely do that. And I said, girl, you better be happy with any grace that Nicole gives you, okay? Because I still don't see it for that little girl. I'm sorry for all of the Eva lovers out there. I still don't care. We talked about it last night. We're all in agreement, at least us in the membership, okay? We're not ready to take Eva back just yet. She's going to have to sit in the corner for a little bit longer and sit in her, okay? So then we jump over back to the hospital, and Bill is still giving Shanice and Dr. 3M a hard time. So finally, Dr. 3M warns him that, look, if you don't improve, you just won't leave. How about that? Okay. And so, and then she starts, as she said, oh, so what's going on? How does it feel to have a daughter? When is your daughter coming back? And so Bill assumes that, she's asking to test his cognitive abilities. And Dr. 3M says, no, I just like to get to know my patients. And so she's like, how does it feel to have a daughter with millions of followers? She a fan, she a fan, she a fan. What I keep telling y'all. Okay. So Haley remembers, oh yeah, girl, I seen you on her feed or whatever. And so Bill said, yeah, he loves that Chelsea is successful, but he doesn't like the fact that the world is all in their business. And I said, well, of course, because we know you got secrets, Bill. So now Chelsea and Kat They're down at Offer Jeans toasting to the countdown of their launch for the purse line. Kat brings up how she saw the live with Dr. 3M, and she could tell that Chelsea was just googly eyed over her. And although Chelsea is, trying to downplay it, so Kat asked her, "Well, why are you being so secretive with me?" And Chelsea plays as if, that's just my daddy, doctor girl. Stop playing. So then Kat speculates that, oh, so you planning this big reveal now that you done told everybody, now that you out here, and you done told everybody that you like women. And so Chelsea admits, actually, I have not told everybody. And so that's when Kat figures out, oh, so you still ain't told your daddy. And she was just like, I was, but then him and Haley dropped baby news on me I wasn't ready for. And then my daddy had a stroke. It just didn't seem like the right time. So Chelsea tries to switch the subject, but Kat can tell that, Dr. 3M is all that Chelsea can think about. Okay. And so then they start discussing their business, and um Chelsea feels like, hey, we need a showroom. So they come up with this idea that they're going to be moving into Danny's. Did y'all hear that? I know y'all, I'm sure y'all heard that because that was loud. Okay, I'm sorry. That was distracting as hell. Anyway, so they've come up with this idea, or at least Chelsea, that they're gonna move into Danny's house. The little, studio space that she had made for Chelsea. They're gonna move in there, her and Kat, and use that space to work, live, and whatever. And Chelsea thinks it's a benefit that they'll still be close to Danny. And that's when they're interrupted by Jacob, who obviously wants to have a conversation with Kat. And yep, I can see the little Wi-Fi thing on the screen. It's about to get real. So if I start to get sketchy, y'all, I apologize. I can't control it. It's a real storm. And I may have to stop and come back tomorrow in a different outfit. We'll see what happens. While Eva is sitting there with Laura, she keeps getting calls from Leslie. Pick six. So she ignores it and tells Laura that, she wishes she could do things all over again with the whole Nicole and Ted situation. And Laura tells her that, I think you and Nicole are going to find your way back to each other. I guess. So then finally, Eva picks up the phone and Pick Six tells her, it's the end of the world as we know it. All right. And Eva tells her that, you know what? You'll be fine. And she doesn't really elaborate. So she goes over there to see what's actually going on. Danny takes Nicole. Danny has taken Nicole back to her house, and she pulls one of her little cups out of the cabinet, and she tells her, you know what? Throw it at the wall as hard as you can, floor or something like that. And so Nicole's like, I don't, my prim proper ass don't do this. This is not how I get out my anger. And so Danny tells her, stop thinking and throw. All right. And so then she throws the first one and tells Nicole that, look, you are not in control of what's broken because you didn't break it. I love that. I love that. And so Danny hands her the cup and Nicole throws it. And she's like, a little satisfying. And so then Danny and her are having, a real good therapeutic time throwing dishes and talking to mugs. And they even go as far as Nicole said something about, oh, how dare you, Ted, cheat on me with this stankaroni. And Danny's like, stankaroni, but they just go with it. And it was a really cute sister moment. And I loved it. Now, back over at Off Jeans, Jacob is telling Kat that he went to search Leslie's apartment and he found the helmet and the gloves. So Kat is celebrating and she realizes that Jacob is not sharing her same sentiments. So Jacob tells her that he thinks that she's the one that planted the evidence. And so Kat was like, I ain't got nothing to do with it. And Jacob tells her the visual analyst does have the helmet and the jacket, and he may be able to get a warrant for Leslie's DNA. So then he gets a call from the analyst letting him know that it is the same helmet and the same gloves that were in the video. So boom, we got that connection. So Kat is elated by the news. Only, and Jacob said, hold on. Because I still need to get the warrant for the DNA, right? So that's when he gets another phone call, and you can clearly see the disappointment come across his face. And so he breaks the news that the judge won't issue the warrant for DNA since they weren't able to find the helmet and gloves in the first search, and tells Kat that, their investigation might be dead in the water. Okay, because you just keep messing it up. But I honestly do. I'm really convinced now that I want Cat to Catlock, because that's her new name, y'all. We done named her Catlock. Okay, I really do want Catlock to do whatever she needs to do to be a private investigator, and then I guess her and Tomas had this little relationship where he's a lawyer. To me it works. It works. Okay. So Eva goes over to see Leslie and she's going crazy. Leslie explains that Jacob found her helmet and gloves, and she wants Eva to explain how they ended up back in her apartment. So Eva tells her, look, I love you and you got yourself in this situation. I didn't do it to you. You did. And so she tries to reassure her mother, I was not responsible, and I do plan to go find out what's going on. Leslie feels like Eva don't love her no more. Things are not the same. And then she plays like she's gonna rest so she can get rid of Eva. And then after Eva leaves, she celebrates about her being here to stay. And I was like, what is it that we do not know? What is it? So now Chelsea goes by the hospital to talk to 3M about Bill's condition. And of course, 3M is letting her know your daddy difficult as hell, girl. But says once he gets out of his own way, he will recover. And so she tells her that, he's not showing any warning signs or anything. And so Chelsea's just happy to hear the news and admits, me and my dad were not in the best place before he became ill. And because of her, now they have a second chance. And so Dr. 3M really gives the credit to Haley and says if she hadn't gotten to the hospital when she did, things could have been a lot different. And so Chelsea has to admit that, damn, we actually are grateful for Haley. We actually are grateful for 4-H. Damn. All right. I guess one of the H's can stand for helper. All right. And so then Chelsea finally gets what she wants. And 3M mentioned something about them going to dinner or something like that, possibly going to dinner. And I said, okay. So this thing seems to be moving along. And again, I'm here for when Chelsea is not acting so thirsty. Okay. But yeah, so that was episode 71. Y'all drop down in the comments. Let me know what you thought. And let's move on to episode 72. All right. So we see Eva. She approaches Kat at the country club and tells her that she knows that she's the one that stole the helmet from her room. Here's the first thing. We talked about this last night. Ma'am, you do realize that you just admitted that you had the helmet and the gloves? Just saying. I don't know if she. So Eva calls her a common thief and tells her that, you can keep trying to get my mama locked up, but until Leslie decides to go away, she'll be there until she decides not to be. And so Kat compares her to a cockroach that survives the apocalypse. And then Eva tells her, well, you need to take a page out of Martin's book and accept this new world order. I said, this is why I don't like her. This is what I'm saying. That's that Leslie that I'm talking about. That's really deep within her. And when the time is right, she brings it out. I don't know why they trust this little evil girl. Evil Eva. Shout out to my boo, Princess Diamond Cut. But anyway, so Smitty lets Martin know that he's been assigned a new story. He has to do this piece on Detective Malone, which Martin looks visibly worried. So we clearly know Detective Malone must know something about Martin's secret, right? All right. So basically Martin is trying to tell Smitty that, the story is a waste of his time and it's beneath his talents. And then they get an interruption from a gentleman named Zach, who comes by to have a conversation with Martin. Zach is there to report that a local store owner from Martin's district was robbed and is at the hospital in serious condition. Martin plans to go by the hospital and, see him, but asks, well, do they know who did it? And so Zach tells him, look, the suspect is in custody. He tells Martin that you should issue a press release. Since you have this whole initiative to fight crime, right? So Martin asked him to explain what happened, and then he starts to black out into his nightmares, okay? Or flashbacks. In the meantime, between time, Malone and Jacob are down at Uptown and they run into Pick Six. And Jacob is just telling Malone about her and how he's trying to nail her. But he couldn't get the warrant for the DNA. So Malone tells him the only reason he's so passionate about nailing Leslie is because she got on the wrong side of his family. And Jacob actually says, no, it's not about the case. I actually feel like that may be a danger to public safety. And so Malone tells him, well, back in the day, we had a way of dealing with stuff like this. And Jacob says, I know that. And that's why I was hopeful that with my dad now being the head of the department, that things would be different. And so Malone says, look, if you want to play by the rules, you can't get upset when things don't go your way. And I said, well, and so then that's when we see Jacob get a call. And of course, we have to assume that it's from Cat because he sounds irritated. And he's like, what could you possibly want? All right. Now, Derek, DNA alert, warning, warning. So Derek shows up at the hospital to see Ashley. She's trying to make plans, but he already has some, a night out with the guys. So Ashley tells him, well, you know what? It's cool. I'll just see you another day. They're just so awkward. This is so hard. It's painful. It's painful, y'all. So Derek asks her, well, look, are we good? And Ashley tells Derek, you know what? We're fine. But after talking for a minute, they realize they're no longer in sync. So she runs off to tend to a patient and tells him that, she'll see him for dinner the next day because I guess he decided to rearrange some plans or she decided to rearrange something. But then that's when Naomi comes out of her dad's, room and runs into Jacob and is like, is everything okay? Nope, it's not. So then Carlton, where have you been all my life? All my life. Where have you been all my life? Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. We got Carlton back. Okay. So Carlton and Ted run into each other at the country club. Okay. And Carlton asks if, have you and Nicole made up yet? And and another thing we talked about in the membership was that print. Okay. And I don't know if anybody else that was in the membership last night caught it or anybody else that's listening to this, but I feel like once it was seen, the rest of the episode he spent covering it. All right. So Ted says, nah, we ain't made up yet, dog. And so Carlton makes it clear to him, look, if I was you, I'd spend every waking moment trying to get Nicole back. I said, I told y'all. Literally, my notes say, I told y'all. Carlton won't that. Carlton see a good thing, and he said, you don't know how to treat her. So let me teach you. What they say, reach one, teach one. Okay. And so then Nicole happens to walk up behind them and she says, oh, well, it's too bad Ted isn't as smart as you, Carlton. And then, she give him a good arm rub. I said, So Ted compliments Nicole on how good she looks. And Nicole tells him that, I've been through some ceramic therapy and I found it to be effective and I am feeling good. She runs off to her yoga class and Carlton points out, look, Ted, Nicole looks like she's doing fine without you, bro. And so Ted says, well, look, I've learned that Nicole doesn't, I realize Nicole don't need me for nothing. And Carlton tells him, well, that any woman worth having doesn't need a man as opposed to wanting one. I said, yes, Carlton, yes. That's my type. That's my type. He said, it's your job to be the frosting on the cake of their lives. I said, yes, brother. And so Carlton lets him know, look, I'm here for you. And I'll help you in any way that I can. Okay. And Nicole. He didn't say that. I'm adding that in. But Ted makes it clear, look, Nicole is my wife. It's my job to make things right. And Carlton said, well, you better hurry up, bro, because Nicole looks good. And she might meet a man in that yoga class that might end up moving into that nice house with her. I said, go ahead and tell the truth, shame the devil, Carlton. Go ahead and tell him your plan. And we learned that Carlton, I guess, is now working in Ted's office. This is gonna be interesting. Okay. Summer too hot. Hey, it's too hot. Okay. Yeah, I don't know none of the words. So Kat goes to talk to Mona about Leslie, and Mona's still battling with her guilt of introducing Pick Six into their lives. So Kat tells her, look, it's not your fault. And really it's Eva and Leslie's, okay? However, she plays on Mona's guilt, tells her that she's thought of a way that Mona can help get Leslie out of their lives for good. So now Ted has sat down with Eva at the country club. He thanks her for being there because no one else will deal with him. And that's exactly what it looked like. And Eva said, well, I can relate because don't nobody like me either. And I said, well, except Laura, which I'm still not understanding. So Ted tells her that he was hoping that, her working at the salon would help her make friends and find a place where she belongs. And Eva said, well, although I'm grateful for you giving me that chair, helping Laura has made me realize how much I miss being an assistant. I know I'm gonna roll my eyes a lot unconsciously, y'all. So please understand. A lot of times I really can't control my face when I'm annoyed, and I'm annoyed at this scene. So she tells Ted that, I've been doing hair since high school and I just don't think it's going to cut it anymore. I want to do something different. So Ted tells her, well, since Kat is taking a leave of absence to focus on her purse line, why don't you be our new office manager? So Eva is so shocked and surprised that Ted would offer her a job after all she's done to him and his family. And I said, so are we. So are we as an audience. Okay. And Ted believes, well, it wasn't you, Eva. It was all Leslie's influence. No, that girl got some real evil deep down to even go through with it. Why can't nobody see that? Ugh. So he tells her that his offer still stands for her to become a certified medical assistant and reassures her that she has all the skills needed to get the job done. And so Eva asked him, well, how do you think Kat's going to feel about me replacing her? And Ted said, look, I know Kat ain't going to be happy about it, but said, she going to have to accept that I'm the one that chose you. And I said, so here we go. We going to stab Kat in the back again. Like, are these your parents? Aren't you their miracle baby? Because the way that they disregard and treat you is beyond me. Y'all might think I'm reaching. We can tussle about it in the comments. I don't understand this dynamic. Okay, I really don't. But anyway, so Eva asked, well, I have to be trained. What's gonna happen? Because obviously Kat isn't gonna want to be the one to do it. And so Ted was like, well, I'm hoping by you guys working together, it'll bring you closer. What? Ted, what don't you understand that Kat don't with her? I don't understand why you with her, besides the fact that she's your supposed spawn. I'm okay. I'm over it. I'm sorry. I'm about to have a meltdown. I'm about to have a meltdown, y'all. Okay. Um, so Ted lets her know that if Kat doesn't step up, it's fine. You can figure it out on your own. We use the same system that Nicole's office uses. So he assures her that, even if Kat doesn't like it, she got her own company to worry about. And then he calls Carlton over and said, come on, man, come over. Let me introduce you to Eva, the new office manager / daughter. And Carlton's like, oh, hey, Eva, cool. Because remember, they met before. Because this is another thing that was pointed out in membership. When she was trapped in a closet, it was Carlton that got her out. I didn't remember that either off top, but one thing that we did talk about last night is I feel like, and I shout out to Blatant Truth, one of our members, and she's been with us for the channel for a very long time. But one thing that she mentioned, or it might have been Princess Diamond, either way, shout out to both of y'all. Love both of y'all. But I'm starting to believe that the writers are forgetting what they set us up for, if that makes sense. or they think that we forgot. So they, and if it's not, and if it wasn't for people who have really good memories, because I definitely forgot. Um, but if it's somebody who really pays attention, then yeah, you would have caught that. And I don't know if y'all know, or some of y'all may not know, but I literally did go to college for broadcasting communications. And one of my classes was film and editing, right? Hence how I got here. Everything came full circle. Um, but one thing that we were always taught in class was continuity. And when you were writing scripts and when you were editing scripts, things had to make sense. And if you did something before, then it had to make sense later. Does that, and so I'm noticing, even just not even with this show, but just a lot of shows, I be wondering what school they went to because the continuity don't be there, and it's something that they miss. And I think it's crazy that viewers who have may never done this, may have never been in this industry or field, can catch things like that. That's pretty bad. But anyway, it's like, if y'all ever, anybody who's a game, I'm going on a tangent. Anybody who's a Game of Thrones fan, if you ever remember, there was this big scene when they were at the what's the baby girl? Daenerys, you know, the dragon girl. And she was at the table, sitting around the table with her crew or whatever. And I think she had a Starbucks cup on the table. And nobody in production caught it. After, while filming, nobody caught it. And it took viewers and it going viral. And I think they eventually tried to go in and edit the Starbucks cup out. But it's little things like that that, like I said, because I went to school for it, it's like, how do you miss that? How do you miss? Starbucks wasn't out when dragons were out. You know what I mean? But anyway, sorry. I'll bring it back in. All right. So then we see Martin, who enters the country club, and the weird, he looked like he getting ready to go for a workout or something, and the weird man, I don't know, the server is following him. So Leslie meets up with Mona at Offrey Jeans. She's already on guard because Mona told her that she was done with her. So she assumes like it's some type of trap. Smart girl. So Mona apologizes for lashing out at her before. And, you know, Mona tells her that Laura isn't holding anything against Eva for what happened. And so she wants to follow her example as a good Christian, you know. And so Leslie's like, well, does that mean you forgive me? And that's when Kat walks in. And I was like, are we going to be any more obvious? But okay. So Leslie noticed Kat sit down in the booth, but not too far away. While Mona lets her know that I'm not forgiving you just yet, sis. Okay. She said that, you know, I'm open to hearing you out. And so Leslie tries to convince her that, you know, she snapped after Ted abandoned her and Alan passed away. Then Jacob comes in to meet Kat. And he's like, look, I knew you was calling me on some bullshit because here we are. And Leslie's right over there. And, you know, Kat plays innocent. And so Kat lets Jacob know that she don't give a damn what Jacob thinks because Leslie came after her family and used Eva to do it. And she was right about this heifer the whole time. So then she mentions how if everyone had listened to her, they wouldn't be where they are now. And I said, well, if the girl had points, that was one. Okay. And Jacob asked her, well, why am I here? So then they cut back to Mona. And so they eating donuts when Mona tells, look, girl, get that side of your mouth. Get that right there. So then Mona brings up how, look, I can understand why you wanted Eva to have a relationship with her father. And Leslie's like, well, I'm glad that you understand. But then Mona, I love how Mona, again, Mona is the real MVP for me. Lately, Mona has been that girl. Fight me in the comments. Mona has been that girl. Ever since this happened, and I said she talked too much, Mona has redeemed herself. Okay. Mona flips the script and said, well, what you did was totally messed up. And she lets Leslie know you could have told Ted in private, but that's not what you wanted to do. And she said, I can even understand you wanting a little revenge. What I don't get is you hurting Nicole that did absolutely nothing to you and completely humiliating her at her anniversary party. I'm here for it, Mona. Okay. And so she said, and I can't get past that. And that the fact that you took delight in Nicole's pain, and says, because of that, I can't forgive you. And I don't think I ever will. And so then, of course, I love how Leslie's crazy, manipulative, she loves that. Yeah, if it's went, yeah, she love to flip it and reverse it, right? So pick six, Leslie tells Mona that, I really used to admire you, but you lured me here under the impression that we could be friends again. And that's just cruel. And said, you're just as mean as you accuse me of being. And so she walks out. And that's when Kat comes over and grabs her gloves and picks up the napkin that she left on the table to wipe her mouth. And she takes it over to Jacob. And that's when he starts putting the pieces together of Kat's plan. And I said, well, there you have it. Okay. Cut back over to Martin's house. And he's explaining to Zach, because Zach's like, come back, Martin, come back. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? So Martin's like, oh, I'm good. And he's like, I've been having migraines. So Zach explains how badly that Paolo, I believe his name, or Paolo, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Forgive me, Paolo, was beaten as Martin continues to have his flashes of whatever he did. And so he instructs Zach, well, you come up with the press release, and I'll make a statement at the store. And so Zach's like, thank you so much for stepping up. And then Martin just, when he leaves, he's just sitting there looking traumatized. Okay. Now, Andre has gone by the nurse's station to, talk to Ashley, of course. And he says that, he had a meeting with the hospital. It went well. The documentary's done. And so you ain't got to be worried about me, roaming around, but you ain't got to worry about me bumping in, conveniently bumping into you anymore. And he's like, and Derek should be happy to hear that. But he notices that Ashley's mood is off. So he's like, well, what's going on? And so Ashley admits that she thinks that their short-term living together did long-term damage to the relationship. And I said it absolutely did. Because y'all don't need to be together. That's what that meant. So Derek is sharing these same sentiments with Naomi over at All Free Jeans. And said, yeah, things ain't been the same since they lived together. So Naomi's trying to dig, and Derek can't really give her anything besides, it's just the energy is weird between us now. He thinks they're overly polite to each other just so they basically don't argue. So there's no point of contention. And so Naomi tries to convince him that loving Ashley should be enough for them to make it. But Derek isn't so sure about that. So Naomi says, well, I would normally tell you to give it time and let it play out. But you know what? After my daddy's stroke, I realized time is of the essence. Okay. So she tells him, you need to show her, you need to step up, show her you appreciate her, and you got to get it right. You better get it right, because ain't too many more chances. And so, but we see us, basically back and forth of Derek talking to Naomi and Ashley talking to Andre about the awkwardness in the relationship and not really knowing what to do about it. And so Naomi finally tells Derek that, you know what, taking a wrong step is better than not taking one at all, and letting things be the way they are. So, and they both, and we can hear both of them say that they just want things to be the way they were before they moved in together. So let's move on. So finally, Martin decides to break down. He goes to see his mama. Nicole lets him know that, she's doing better than she was before. And then she tells him that, Anita done skipped town to do her articulate reunion. So she tells him, and she just talks about how, she's proud of her mother for revisiting her past. And Martin admits that, he got something to get off his chest and he could use some professional advice from his favorite psychiatrist. So of course, Nicole is like, no, baby, I can't do family. And so Martin tells her, well, look, I need some advice from you as a mother. And I said, yes, we need to see that. We need to see that, because you real quick to go talk to your grandparents real quick. And you just, I understand you look older than your parents, but still go talk to them. All right. So he tells her about the nightmares that he's been having and how they keep resurfacing. And he tells her how, he went off in the days in the middle of a meeting and he believes that he might be losing his damn mind. And so Nicole asked, well, if the nightmares are coming from a real life experience, and if it's something that he's been through that she's not aware of, because clearly she's not aware, right? And so Martin says that he doesn't know what caused it or why it happens, but he just wants it to stop. So she wonders if it could be the stress of what's going on between her and Ted. And he said, no, 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 ma. Hold yourself. This has been happening way before Pick Six. You and Daddy had y'all issues. And so Nicole asked him, well, how do they make you feel? And so Martin tells him that, when I'm in it, I'm afraid. And when I come out of it, then I feel guilty. So Nicole suggests, well, you know what? I'm going to give you a couple names of people that you can go talk to. Um, but please make sure that you actually go. And so, of course, Martin promises that he will, but we know that he won't. And we'll get into, like I said, I've already watched episode 73, and I ain't even gonna hold you. I have a lot to say about that because I'm actually very disappointed in Vernon and what he said to Martin. But anyway, let me not jump ahead for those that haven't watched it. Anyway, if you guys have not already, please, please, please hit that like button for me. If you haven't, make sure you comment. Go ahead and subscribe because we're a whole vibe over here, okay? And make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when we're going live. Quick church announcements. We will be doing Never Ever Met Sunday with Really Be TV, as we call it, the Really Shady panel. So we'll be doing that Sunday at 1 o'clock. We also got episode 2 of season 4, BMF. That'll be 10 o'clock on Sunday night. And Nels has her recap of The Shy tomorrow. I believe that's at 12 o'clock. Eastern Standard Time. Everything's Eastern Standard Time for us, guys. So yeah, we appreciate the support. If you can get a chance to drop through, or just hit the like button and show your support. We appreciate it. And y'all have a great weekend. Be safe. And for all my fathers out there, happy Father's Day. Okay. And for all of those that show up in a fatherly way with a fatherly presence, happy Father's Day, y'all. Y'all have a great weekend. And I'll be back. I will circle back. So this is gonna be a back to back. I will circle back for 73, y'all. Bye bye.